Are you afraid of loneliness? The silence that fills the room, the endless days passing by, leaving you alone with only fading memories. Sometimes, loneliness isn't just being alone. It's when those we once loved have drifted away, leaving us in invisible spaces. For Emily Thompson, this loneliness became her reality in old age, a world without children, without family, where only old photographs and a small dog named Benny kept her company through the days. Emily had once been a devoted mother, dedicating her life to raising her 2 children with unconditional love. Those years were a relentless cycle of hard work, all to give her children a brighter future. But as her children grew up, they left her side, drawn to the excitement of life in the city. Emily stayed behind, hoping that one day the laughter of her children would once again fill her quiet home. Yet as the months turned into years, the house remained silent. By the time she turned 70, Emily had only Benny, the one friend who listened to her every word, sharing her journey through the solitude of aging. Emily's story is a poignant journey of unconditional love, sacrifice, and the loneliness of old age, reminding us that sometimes the deepest love we give may go unreturned. Emily Thompson grew up in a small town in Ohio, where she met her husband James in her early 20s. Their love was pure and bright, a beautiful beginning to what Emily thought would be a life filled with happiness. They had 2 children together, Michael and Sarah. James was the family's anchor, a hard-working man who made Emily feel safe. But life had different plans, and when James was tragically killed in a work accident, Emily's life took a sharp, lonely turn. With 2 young children depending on her, Emily had to find work immediately, setting aside her dreams to provide for her family. Every day, she juggled long hours at a local grocery store and took on various side jobs to make ends meet. Her love for her children, though, gave her the strength to keep going, even when the weight of her responsibilities seemed too heavy to bear. Emily's days were filled with exhausting tasks, but her nights belonged to Michael and Sarah. She would tuck them into bed, read them stories, and kiss them goodnight, reminding them that she loved them more than anything in the world. Her sacrifices were endless, but so was her love. Years passed, and Emily's sacrifices bore fruit. Michael was accepted into a medical school on a scholarship, and Sarah attended a design school on the other side of the country. Emily was proud but also heartbroken as her children packed their bags and left for their new lives. Standing in the doorway, she watched them drive away, forcing herself to smile through the tears that filled her eyes. In those early years, Michael and Sarah would call often. They would tell her about their studies, their new friends, and the adventures they were experiencing. Emily held onto the phone with a smile, laughing along with them, imagining what their lives were like, even though she could feel the growing distance. As the years slipped by, the calls became less frequent. Michael and Sarah were caught up in the demands of work and relationships, and their visits home grew further apart. Emily tried to understand, telling herself, "They're just busy, they have lives of their own now." But as each month passed without a call, Emily felt a deep, consuming loneliness settle within her. By the time she turned 70, Emily's once busy household had transformed into a place of silent, lingering memories. The walls seemed to echo with the laughter of her children, now a distant sound, a fading warmth. Her once strong hands, now frail and wrinkled, folded over her lap as she sat by the window each day, looking down the empty road, hoping to see her children's faces again. Emily's only companion during these long, quiet days was a small dog named Benny. She had found Benny as a stray, hungry and shivering, outside her door one winter morning. It was as if fate had brought Benny to her, filling her empty days with a tiny bit of warmth. Benny was a small, scrappy dog with bright eyes, and he quickly became her shadow, following her everywhere. She would talk to him, sharing her thoughts and memories as if he could understand every word. When the loneliness became too overwhelming, Emily would sit with Benny in her lap, stroking his fur as she spoke to him. "Oh, Benny," she would whisper, "I miss them so much. They were everything to me, everything." Emily's life soon became a series of small, quiet rituals. Each morning, she would make herself a cup of tea and prepare a little bowl of food for Benny. She would read the newspaper, circling the town's upcoming events, but she rarely attended any. The events seemed like reminders of a life that she was no longer a part of, a life filled with families and friends that she had lost along the way. Every Sunday, Emily would bake cookies, just as she used to when Michael and Sarah were little. She would imagine them sitting at the kitchen table, eagerly waiting for the cookies to cool. As she placed the cookies on a plate, she would catch herself whispering, "Here you go, Michael, and one for you, Sarah." And then, with a deep sigh, she would place the plate back on the counter, knowing it would stay full, untouched. The house, once filled with the smells of cooking and the sounds of laughter, now felt like a museum of memories. Emily would occasionally open old photo albums, touching the pictures of her children as if hoping to feel them close again. Benny would sit beside her, his head resting on her knee, offering the only comfort he could. One rainy afternoon, while Emily was cleaning the living room, her phone rang. It startled her. She had not received a call in weeks. She wiped her hands on her apron, her heart pounding as she picked up the receiver. "Hello?" she answered, her voice trembling with hope. On the other end was Michael. He had called to say hello and ask how she was doing. Emily's heart leapt with joy as she listened to his voice, the voice of the little boy she had once held in her arms. She asked him about his life, about Sarah, about everything he was willing to share. But she could hear the distance in his tone, a faint hint of impatience. He promised to visit soon, but she had heard that promise before. As the call ended, Emily sat back in her chair, clutching the phone tightly. She looked at Benny, who had curled up at her feet, and smiled sadly. "At least we have each other, Benny," she murmured, gently patting his head. Months passed, and Emily grew frailer. Her movements became slower, and Benny, sensing her weakness, never left her side. Each day was a quiet battle against the solitude that had become her life. Yet, through it all, Emily held on to a faint hope that one day her children would return. One cold winter evening, as Emily sat with Benny by her side, she felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. She closed her eyes, the memories of her children's laughter filling her mind. She whispered, "I hope you know how much I love you, Michael and Sarah. I hope you'll remember me." The next morning, Emily's neighbor noticed her absence and became worried. She knocked on Emily's door but received no response. After several attempts, she called Michael and Sarah, who rushed to their mother's side. When they arrived, they found Emily lying peacefully in her bed. Benny curled up beside her, his small body a faithful guardian even in her final moments. Michael and Sarah looked at each other, guilt and sorrow filling their hearts as they realized the extent of their mother's love and the loneliness she had endured. They were too late to say goodbye, but the traces of her love were everywhere. In the cookies left on the counter, in the photos carefully arranged, and in Benny, the small dog who had been her only companion. Emily's story is a reminder of the immeasurable love that parents hold for their children. A love that endures even in the face of loneliness and abandonment. She lived her life for her children, and even when they left her behind, she held on to hope, never once harboring resentment. Her love was selfless, a quiet and unwavering force that remained with her until her final breath. Through her story, we learn the importance of family, the value of time, and the need to cherish those who love us unconditionally. Life can be demanding, but no success or achievement can replace the warmth and security of family. Emily's life teaches us that love, though sometimes taken for granted, is the most powerful gift we can give and receive. As you reflect on Emily's journey, remember to make time for those who matter most. Don't let life's demands overshadow the people who have sacrificed for you. Reach out, hold them close, and show your gratitude before it's too late. If this story has touched your heart, subscribe to Life Stories 365. Here we preserve and share meaningful, heartfelt stories that remind us of the importance of family, love, and connection. Join us as we honor lives like Emily's and keep these timeless lessons alive for future generations. Subscribe now and continue the journey to rediscover the meaning of life.